The number of Australians aged 65 years and over is expected to increase by 50% in the next 20 years. Hi, I'm Simon Atkins, your brand new apartment specialist, helping you buy, invest and relocate right here in Perth. So if you're a downsizer and you're looking to get rid of the large family home and you're a little bit confused about what to do, where to move to, you've thought about a brand new apartment, but you've never lived in an apartment and you're not really sure what you want or how you're going to go about it or even how it works, then keep watching this video because I'm here to try and help you out a little bit with some of the details around that and maybe one or two ideas to give you so that can help your decision moving forward and hopefully give you a little bit of clarity on that. So I deal with quite a lot of downsizers because it's the biggest chunk of the market, basically baby boomers and on from there. You know, there's a lot of baby boomers now that are retiring and you know, looking to downsize from the family home to something more manageable, something maybe that you want to go traveling a little bit more and it's a lock up and leave, or you can be financially downsizing or both. And the financial downsizing, of course, is you sell your home, which is worth a lot more. You move into a smaller apartment that you might be getting something for a little bit less, and you got some residual that you can put into your super, and it helps top that up as well. So people tend to do it for a mix of those things. And I can say to you, I've dealt with, as I said, a lot of downsizers, so you're not alone. And I find a lot of downsizers have the problem, I suppose, of coming from quite a large home. So they might be a 4-bedroom home and they've got a big backyard and they're looking to downsize, but do they really want to downsize? They know that probably the house is too not manageable anymore, but when they look at a lot of apartments, they go, I'm not sure I want to live in an apartment either. It's maybe too small. And so there's this kind of tug of war. And of course, when you've lived in a house maybe 30, 40, 50 years, and you're getting older in life, then that's a big emotional upheaval as well as an actual physical upheaval, because nobody likes moving house, I don't think. But when you're saying goodbye to the family home, there are a lot of emotions there, and of course it's a change. But I find, in all honesty, that most people that I've dealt with that have moved into apartment living find it a revelation, because it just gives them more time. They don't have the headache of having to take care of gardens, etc. And most people find that it's a move that's really suited them, and particularly for their time in life. So as I said, it's the biggest part of the demographic of buyers in Australia, and as I said, we deal with them all the time. So I'll try and give you a few tips and a few ideas that might help you moving forward, and a little bit of better understanding as to buying a brand new apartment. So quite often these apartments, of course, are off the plan, so you buy them before they're completed, and we get a lot of people doing that. So if you're looking at buying actually off the plan and not something that's actually been completed itself, then we get a lot of questions around, well, if this is going to be completed in 2 years' time, then I want to sell my house, how do I make that work between selling the house and moving into the apartment? So what we normally do, of course, we get a lot of questions around that, but we try and time it, of course, so that there's the least amount of stress on you moving from your home into your apartment. Now, of course, sometimes with brand new apartments, you can have delays because there's a lot of working parts when you're building brand new apartments, and sometimes there can be delays. But generally, we work very closely with the buyer, and quite often we will sell their home as well, or we'll sell your home, which helps you move and helps us control the whole process so that it's a slightly more seamless move from your home into your apartment. So if there is a delay with the development, for example, and you're looking at selling your house, we can manage these things, and one of those ways of doing it these days is to get you into the apartment as soon as possible, and that may be before settlement. So for example, once occupancy comes through, there are opportunities for you to move in even if you haven't actually settled on the property at that point in time. So that means that once an occupancy certificate comes through, these days you kind of have to set up between you and the developer a rental scenario, because it covers the developer for all sorts of different things, because you're not buying the property as the terms of the contracts originally state in a completely completed fashion. But once you've got occupancy, the opportunity can be there for you to move in, and as I mentioned, it would be on some kind of a rental basis. Now, whether the developer pays you that rent back once you actually settle on the property or not, normally it's just a small amount, but it needs to be done more for a legal standpoint than anything else. If say for example you're having trouble selling your house and the apartment is completed, then of course we work with the developer so that we can extend the period for you to move into that brand new apartment and hopefully get the outcome that you're looking for with the sale of your own home. So there's quite a few different nuances and things like that we work around. And we deal with things as they come up, because quite often they're specific to the person that's selling their home, but we get very good outcomes 99% of the time for people trying to move into their brand new apartment. So that's one aspect, and as I said, it does help a little bit if we can sell your home as well. We don't have to, but it just means if we're not and you're going with a different agent to sell your existing home, then we just work a little bit more closely with you and hopefully with that agent as well to try and get the best outcome that we can. So the other thing about buying apartments is, if you've never bought a brand new apartment, never bought off the plan, a lot of people just don't even understand what the process is. So they're generally secured off the plan with a 10% deposit. Okay, not all the time, but some kind of a deposit that you'd put down, and we put that in a trust account. Okay, so that sits in a trust account like it would for any property purchase in Western Australia, whether it's apartment block or anything else. And that money will sit there, and if it's for a value of $20,000 or more, or for a period of 3 months or longer, we can put it into a term deposit so you can get some interest on that money as well. So then you don't pay any more. That money just sits there until the development is finished, and then we give you a heads up around about 3 months out from expected completion of the new development, and that's when you would be looking at getting your ducks in a row, so to speak, and selling the property and getting it ready to go, or hopefully you would have got it ready to go before that, but getting the sale of the property ready and engaging an agent and looking to put that on the market and get that sold. So we give you a heads up, as I said, so that you can start preparing for all those types of things. If you need finance or anything else, you can get all those ducks in a row. So once you put the deposit down, as I said, there's nothing else to do at that point. The contracts that you sign are unconditional, so it's always something you should be aware of, that a developer can keep the deposit. If you don't just decide you don't want to settle on that property for some reason, legally they can keep the deposit because as I mentioned, the contract is unconditional. So if the situation changes, as I've mentioned in a previous video, if your situation changes and for some reason you need to get out of that particular development and you don't want to settle on it anymore, it's the same with different scenarios that we've used in the past. We often just resell that apartment and then transfer someone else's deposit into the trust account, and you get yours back and you move on. So that's one way of doing it. And there's a couple of different ways that we work these things, but we always work with people based on their own circumstances and their own situation and make it work as best as we can. So the key things there are unconditional contract. It's generally speaking a 10% deposit. If, for example, you're cash poor, and sometimes a lot of baby boomers are, they're asset rich and cash poor, and you don't have, let's say you're looking to put down a 10% deposit, and that's $100,000 of $1 million apartment that you're going to buy, and you don't have $100,000 sloshing around. Well, you can get a loan potentially against the equity in your house and get that done, but Sometimes developers will accept deposit bonds as well, which I won't go too deep into that, but basically it's a certificate that you get from a deposit bond issuer that says we've assessed this person, they've got plenty of equity in their home, and we've given them this certificate to say that they're good for the $100,000. So that replaces you having to put $100,000 into the account, okay? And some developers will accept that as a deposit. Now, from your point of view, all that you pay for in that scenario is the fee for the deposit bond, and that varies depending on the amount of the deposit bond and the term of the deposit bond. So, for example, in fact, I've got an example written down here somewhere which I'll try and fish out. Okay, yeah, so that deposit bond would be, for $100,000 would be about $6.5 grand. So that's $6,500 that you'd pay, and then on settlement, instead of, you'd pay the full amount for the apartment on settlement instead of the residual. You'd normally have paid, the 10% deposit, and then you pay 90% on settlement. Instead of that scenario, you pay 100% of the price of the apartment at settlement instead, because you haven't paid a deposit. But you will pay the fee, as I mentioned, and in that scenario, it would be around about $6,500 if the deposit bond was for, I think that fee was about 2 years or so. What happens is they take the deposit bond up to the sunset clause, which would probably be longer than you need, and anything that you don't use, they will refund that. So that's one other way of doing it if you want to go down that track, providing the developer accepts deposit bonds. Okay, so the other thing that's probably a good thing to be aware of is the earlier you buy into a brand new apartment development, you buy off the plan, you can customize your apartment. So that allows you to get things done in a certain way that might suit you a little bit better, depending on your needs. So you can do that, that's absolutely possible. And in some cases we've amalgamated apartments and done all kinds of things, but that needs to be early in the process, because once they start construction, etc., the window for those type of things obviously closes off. But you can change appliances and all kinds of stuff early on, as long as the developer is aware of it. So something else to be aware of. So one other thing that is worth thinking about is, of course, when you move into an apartment, you can move into really good locations that have a lot of amenity around them. Okay, so generally apartments are in pretty good blue chip locations that have all kinds of things on your doorstep. So quite often, if you're a downsizer, you want more convenience probably as you get older, and you want more things on your doorstep. And not only that you can move into developments that have more and more and more amenity in them. So if you want swimming pools and gyms and all that type of thing, you pay more in your strata fees, but it just means that you have all those things literally on your doorstep. And of course, in that instance, you don't even have to go out of your front door. You can stay within your apartment complex and do whatever it is that you want to do. They quite often have areas, rooftop areas and things like that. We can go up and have a barbecue and do all kinds of things. So there's the opportunity to be very, very close to amenity and in fact have it in your own block. I find though that most downsizers, most of them don't want amenity within the building because they don't want to pay the extra strata fees for the upkeep of that type of thing. So of course you can get developments that don't have any of that, and of course it brings the strata fees right down. So I'd say one of the first things that's worth looking at when you're considering an apartment, outside of the obvious, which is location, is to be looking at firstly what kind of size of apartment development you want to be in. Do you want something more boutique of about 18 apartments, for example? We have that kind of thing in Como, for example. Or do you want something, we've just sold out a development in Mount Pleasant, 197 apartments and lots of amenity in there. So I would be looking at and saying how much amenity do we want? Because if you're looking at an apartment block that's got a lot of amenity and you're not going to use it, then you don't want to be paying for it. So you can take those off your list for a startup, and then you can be looking at things or apartment developments that have less or no amenity at all, and then of course you're not going to be paying for other people's gym membership, etc. So that would be the first thing, and then I'll probably boil it down a little bit more to what kind of size of apartment in the area that you want to be moving into, and then from there, it's really, you're just breaking this down and getting down to the nitty gritty and looking at floor plans and things like that. So, it's something that is actually a very simple process in terms of actually, purchasing an apartment off the plan. We do see a lot of people that ask us about progress payments because they're used to when you build a house. But just remember that it's all that you pay is the deposit. Basically, the developer funds the development itself until completion, and when you actually pay for the apartment that you're going to move into on settlement. So these are a few things that you might want to consider when you're thinking about downsizing. As I said, the other thing is in this market where we're moving really well, your house is obviously going up in value. So if you just hold on to your house and then decide, in 2 years I'm going to sell my house and then I'm just going to move into an apartment that's completed, just remember that the apartment that's completed that you're going to buy at that point in time has also gone up in value. So in some instances, you're kind of swapping the increase in value in your home for the increase in value in the apartment that you're moving into. So what can be useful is if you pre-plan. So you pre-plan your move and buy off the plan, and that means that you put your foot down on something, as I mentioned, and you pay the deposit. And most of our developments mean that once you pay the deposit, they're going to stick to the price, so they're not going to move the price. So if today you go, look, we want to sell our house in a couple of years' time, we're not ready to move yet, but we'd like to move in 2 years' time. But maybe you want to get the benefit of the growth of the apartment, put your foot on it today and get the value out of it as it grows over the next 2 years, as well as your house growing, okay? So as I mentioned before, if you're a financial downsizer, this can be a very, very good strategy in this particular market. So you do your research now, instead of waiting 2 years to buy an apartment. You put your foot on it now, you pay the deposit, and now you're controlling that property. And as it goes up in value, you get the benefit of the increase in the value of the apartment until you settle on it. Until you settle on it, not the developer. Okay, and of course your house is going up in value as well, and you don't need to sell that until you're ready to settle on the apartment. So that can be a really good strategy. It just means a little bit of pre-thought about what you want, and then you can benefit from this market and get more funds and have maybe some even extra money that you can put into your super account. So if you'd like to have, as I mentioned earlier in the video, a free consult with me, and you'd like to go through any of these kind of scenarios, you'd like to get a feel for what's out there, we've got a lot of stock in different areas, different locations in Perth, then just have a look below the video here, and you'll see my details. And don't be afraid to contact me, and we can have a quick phone consult to find out what kind of what you're looking to do, what your scenario is, and then if we need to, you can come in and we can go through and look at the types of things that are on the market and the types of things that may suit you based on your own situation. All right, I hope that was of help, and I hope to talk to you soon.